Hi, I am Revathi. I am working as Assistant Professor in SNS College of Engineering in Department of Artificial Intelligence and Data Science. Today we are going to discuss the topic about transaction states. A transaction in DBMS can be in any one of the following states. Let's discuss these states one by one. Active state. Transaction is a sequence of operations. Transaction is a sequence of logically related operations. If a transaction is in execution, then it is said to be in active state. It doesn't matter which steps is in execution unless the transaction is executing, it remains in active state. Failed state. If a transaction is executing and a failure occurs, either a hardware failure or a software failure, then the transaction goes to the failed state from the active state. Partially committed state. Transaction goes into partially committed state from the active state when there are read and write operations present in a transaction. A transaction contains number of read and write operations. Once the whole transaction is successfully completed, the transaction goes the partially committed state where we have all the read and write operations performed on the main memory instead of the actual database. The reason why we have this state is because a transaction can fail during execution if we are making the changes in the actual database instead of local memory. The database may be left in an inconsistent state in case of any failure. This state helps us roll back the changes made to the database in case of failure during execution. Committed state. If a transaction completes the execution successfully, then all the changes made in the local memory during partially committed state are permanently stored in the database. You can also see the diagram that a transaction goes from partially committed state to committed state when everything is successful. Next one is aborted state. If a transaction fails during execution, then the transaction goes into the failed state. The changes made into the local memory are rolled back to the previous consistent state and the transaction goes into the aborted state from the failed state. What is meant by transaction? A transaction is a single logical unit of work which accesses and possibly modify the content of a database. Transaction access data using read and write operations. In order to maintain a consistency in a database, before and after the transaction, certain properties are followed. These are called ACID properties. ACID means atomicity, consistency, durability, isolation and durability. Atomicity. By this, we mean that either the entire transaction takes place at once or doesn't happen at all. There is no midway. For example, transactions do not occur partially. Each transaction is considered as one unit and either runs to completion or is not executed at all. It involves the following two operations. Abort. If a transaction aborts, changes made to the database are not visible. Commit. If a transaction commits, changes made or visible. Atomicity is also known as all or nothing. Remaining things we will see in next class. Thank you.